This is your one and only 𝐈𝐸𝐸_81 with your daily dose of video goodness, and today I'm going to show you how to become an absolute insane force of nature in Baldur's Gate 3. Let's get to it. Let's start off with talking about race. So obviously you can pick whatever race you want to be. It's not going to make the biggest difference in the world. However, your best in slot for this build is going to be a tiefling, and that is because we get the hellish resistance, and later on we will also get resistance to lightning as well as thunder damage, meaning that we will have 3 total resistances, which is just going to help us a lot with survivability. However, if you're not worried about having fire resistance, then just pick whatever race you want. If you do go with the tiefling, I would go with the 𝐴𝐸𝐻𝐷𝐾 tiefling. That is also going to get us the darkness ability later on, or the darkness spell. You only get to use it once per long rest. However, having it can be extremely handy. Going 𝐴𝐸𝐻𝐷𝐾 tiefling also gets us the produce flame cantrip, so we can skip that when we select our cantrips. For our class, we're going to start off with cleric, and you want to go with the Tempest cleric. That is going to get us the Thunder Wave and the Fog Cloud spells, as well as Wrath of the Storm, which states strike back at an attacking creature, potentially dealing 2 to 16 lightning damage. On failed saving throws, you deal half of a 2 to 16 thunder damage roll. For your initial starting cantrips, you're going to go with Sacred Flame, Guidance, and Light. Now, if you did not go with the tiefling setup that I suggest here, you will not have Produce Flame, and I would go with Produce Flame over going with Light, but since we are going with the 𝐴𝐸𝐻𝐷𝐾 tiefling, we are going to go with Light over Produce Flame because we already have Produce Flame due to the fact that it is a racial ability. If you're going to make this character the face of your party, I don't recommend doing that because it's not really a face of the party build, but if you are going to do that, I would go with Thaumaturgy over Light because Thaumaturgy is going to allow you to gain advantage on intimidation and performance checks, and you will run into a good chunk of intimidation checks, so having that could be really helpful. Your deity doesn't really matter. Pick whichever deity you want. It has no influence on the build. For the background, I would go with Sage background, but honestly, you can pick whichever background you want here for whatever type of character you are going with. But we are playing a caster here in the end, so having Arcana and History just kind of makes sense for the theme. For your abilities, you want to go 10 in Strength, 12 in Dexterity, 14 in Constitution, 10 into Intelligence, 14 into Wisdom, and 16 into Charisma. The reason we have this entire spread like we do here will make much more sense when we get further into the build, but we want at least 10 into Strength. That way our Strength checks are just a flat 0 based on whatever we roll. If we went lower than that, we would actually end up with -1, and we would prefer to have those at 0 or higher. So we put 10 into Strength, 12 in Dexterity, that's going to help us a little bit with Initiative as well as Armor, 14 into Constitution because there's no such thing as too much health, 10 into Intelligence once again, so we have a 0 to our checks there, 14 into Wisdom because that's going to allow us to have up to 3 of our cleric spells active at any given point of time, so we definitely want 14 into there, and 16 into Charisma because we are eventually going to spec into a Charisma class. For your first 3 prepared spells that you are going to run, I would go with Sanctuary, Command, and Cure Wounds. These are going to be really handy early game. For level 2, you are going to go Cleric level 2. That is going to get you a new subclass feature called Destructive Wrath. This states that when you roll thunder or lightning damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead. So it just straight does the max roll of whatever the max roll can be for whatever spell you are casting that is thunder or lightning related. Now, we are only going to ever have one of these to use during a combat scenario because we are only ever going to have one Channel Divinity charge. However, Channel Divinity charges are regenerated on short and long rest. So every time you finish a combat, you do a short rest, you get your Channel Divinity charge back, and then you can use this ability again on your next battle. Moving on to level 3, this is where we are going to spec out of Cleric and into Sorcerer. For your cantrips, you are going to take Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, Firebolt, and Bone Chill. For your first 2 spells, you are going to take Chromatic Orb, definitely because this allows us to cast either thunder or lightning damage whenever we need it, and you are going to take Magic Missile because it's super handy for shooting around corners. For your subclass, you are going to choose the Storm Sorcery. I know, most people are like, go Draconic Bloodline, it's so OP, but the first ability that you get in Storm Sorcery is actually a really helpful ability. The Tempestuous Magic reads that after you cast a level 1 spell or higher, you can fly as a bonus action until the end of your turn without receiving attacks of opportunity. This is basically a free Misty Step. You cast a spell and you get a free Misty Step because it does more or less the same thing. I don't think its range is quite what Misty Step is, but it's still insanely handy for repositioning yourself on the battlefield when you need to. At level 4, we are are going to continue to pick Sorcerer. For our spells, you got two options here basically. You can go Witch Bolt, although I don't really like Witch Bolt that much. It's a concentration spell and it allows you to do damage to a target, lightning damage to a target every turn. So it's on brand with the build. So if you want to do that, if you like the spell, go with that spell. I find Shield a little bit better here because this can really save your butt in some situations. So that one's completely up to you. Pick whichever one of those you want to go with. I'm going to go with Shield here. For your class passives, pick Distance Spell and Twinned Spell. Moving on to level 5, that is going to put us at Sorcery level 3. At this point, you are going to pick Shatter. This is one of our very few Thunder spell options. And then for your class passive, you want Quickened Spell. This is going to allow you to cast 2 spells a turn because you get to use another spell as a bonus action for 3 sorcery points. And if you chose to go with the Tiefling that I suggested at the beginning of the video, you will also unlock the Darkness spell, which you can use once per long rest. At level 6, we are going to once again continue on with sorcery. You get to pick a new cantrip as well as spells. For the cantrip, I would go with the Poison Spray, as out of all of these, it's the one that deals the most damage. And if you run into something that's weak to poison, that would be super handy to have. When it comes to spells at this point, this is a point in the build where you just pick whichever spell you like the best. There's a lot of really good ones to select from here. I'm not really the biggest fan of concentration spells because concentration can get broken relatively easily and it's kind of a pain in the butt. We do have 14 into Constitution, which can help from that, but still it's annoying. So I would go Scorching Ray here if you want to lean towards the more damage dealing side of things. I mean, this build is already going to do insane damage with thunder or lightning spells, but if you want to just kind of mix it up and have a variety, you can go with Scorching Ray. If you want to go a little bit more supporty for those times where you need to support your other characters, Blindness is another good option. It does not take concentration and we can twin spell that really easy to blind 2 creatures for 10 turns, giving whoever is attacking them advantage on attacking them and giving them disadvantage on attacks. So that's also a very super handy spell to have, although that one's a little more on the supporty side. So whichever one you want to go with here, I'm going to go with Scorching Ray in this video. We also get to pick our first feat. For that, you're going to go with ability improvements and you are going to bump charisma up to 18. Moving on to level 7 and sorcery level 5. This level doesn't have too much going on other than the fact that we get one of our most OP spells, and that is Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is essentially Fireball, except for it's in a straight line and Fireball is a circular AoE. But I would even wager to say that Lightning Bolt has the potential to damage way more enemies than Fireball does, but they both have equal damage, dealing 8 to 48 damage. And we have the capability to force this thing to deal 48 damage once per short rest. At level 8, sorcery level 6 is where this build starts to become absolutely nutty for multiple reasons. We get new subclass features, which include Heart of the Storm and Heart of the Storm Resistance. Heart of the Storm Resistance makes us resistant to lightning and thunder damage. So if you chose Tiefling, you are now resistant to 3 different types of damage: fire, lightning, and thunder. Heart of the Storm reads that when you cast a spell of level 1 or higher that deals lightning or thunder damage, you cause a small local storm. All enemies within 6 meters take 3 lightning damage or 3 thunder damage, depending on which type of spell you cast. You also get a whole host of new spells, including Call Lightning, which deals 3 to 30 damage. It is a concentration spell. You cast it to call down lightning in an area, then for 10 turns after that, you can cast it in a new location without expending a spell slot. You get Sleet Storm, which is pretty handy, but we don't really care about it. We're going to be casting thunder and lightning spells. Gust of Wind, once again, don't really care about it because we're going to be casting thunder and lightning spells. And because we chose Cleric and our choice of subclass in Cleric, we already have Create and Destroy Water as well as Thunder Wave. So unfortunately, we're doubling up on these, but it doesn't really matter. And for our spells, we grab Haste because Haste is insanely busted. Not only can we cast it twice because we can twin spell it and cast it on ourselves and an ally, that will immediately give us another attack that turn, allowing us to do whatever we want damage-wise. Then we can cast Sanctuary on ourselves to help prevent ourselves from being attacked. That way we can ensure that we hold Haste's concentration until our next turn. On our next turn, we can cast Lightning Bolt 3 times. Yes, 3 times. And one of those times, we can ensure that it does max damage. This is devastating to large groups of enemies. And it is really not that hard to group them up or line them up to damage large chunks of them with Lightning Bolt. On top of that, we also deal additional damage due to Heart of the Storm, because if we cast a lightning spell, we will deal an additional 3 lightning damage to everything in the area of that lightning spell. spell. Lightning Bolt has a really long range to it, and on each side of that 6 meters out will take 3 lightning damage, on top of everything that is caught in the lightning bolt, meaning that you can cause your lightning bolt to deal 51 damage. Granted, you can only do this once per short rest. However, when you need to bust out an insane amount of damage and nuke a battlefield, you can do so. At level 10, you will get to pick a new feat, and for that feat, I would go with Elemental Adapt and choose Lightning. This is going to cause your lightning spells to ignore resistances, and you can't roll a 1. You'll also get to choose your next meta magic at this level, and I would go with Careful Spell. This is just in case that your allies are in line with your lightning bolt. They'll still take some damage, but they won't take max damage. Other than that, at level 8, the build is more or less complete, so just pick whichever spells you want to pick from this point on and continue to level in sorcery until you are max level. Hitting level 12 should put you at Cleric level 2 and Sorcery level 10. Alright, and that is going to wrap it up for this one. Hopefully you found this video helpful and informational. If you did, consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell so you can be notified when I upload other videos. And if you're looking for some more Baldur's Gate 3 content, you can find a link to another one of my videos on the screen right now. I want to give an absolute massive shout out and thank you to all of my channel supporters for helping to keep these videos sponsor free. You all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to become an official channel supporter, check out the links in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and share your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.